Every time you open a plastic bottle of white pills to dull a headache or thin your blood, you are participating in a multi-billion-dollar ritual of dependency. We have been conditioned to believe that pain is a biological debt that can only be settled at a pharmacy counter. We have been taught that chemistry is something that happens in a laboratory, under the seal of a corporate patent, rather than something that happens in the soil under our feet. But 4,000 years before the first pharmaceutical lobby was formed, humanity had already solved the problem of pain. It didn't come in a blister pack. It came from the bark of a tree that grows in every ditch, marsh, and riverbank across the northern hemisphere. This is the story of the willow, the tree that gave the world aspirin, only to have its legacy stolen, synthesized, and eventually suppressed to protect the profit margins of the modern medical-industrial complex. The archive of human survival shows that the Sumerians and the ancient Egyptians were using willow bark for inflammation as early as 2500 BC. In the 5th century BC, Hippocrates, the father of medicine, was prescribing a tea made from willow leaves to ease the agony of childbirth. For the indigenous tribes of North America, the willow wasn't just a tree, it was the great healer, a universal remedy for fevers and joint pain that required no prescription and no permission. But look at the landscape of 2026. You are surrounded by this medicine. It grows in the vacant lots of your cities and the edges of your suburbs. Yet, if you were to harvest it today, most would call you a quack, and the system would call the plant a liability. Why? Because you cannot patent a tree. You cannot put a trademark on a riverbank. The turning point came in the 19th century. Chemists discovered that the active power in willow was a compound called salicin. But salicin in its natural form was too accessible. It was too easy to harvest at home. By 1897, a chemist working for a small dye company called Bayer figured out how to synthesize a buffered version, acetylsalicylic acid. They called it aspirin. This was the birth of the modern trap. To build a market for the synthetic pill, the system had to erase the credibility of the living tree. They didn't just sell a product, they sold the idea that the natural version was dangerous, inconsistent, and primitive. They turned the willow from a healer into a weed. They moved the source of health from the commons of nature to the vaults of the corporation. The brilliance of the willow is its biological intelligence. When you take a synthetic pill, you are hitting your system with a concentrated, isolated chemical spike. It is effective, but it is harsh, notoriously damaging to the stomach lining. But the willow tree doesn't produce salicin in isolation. It packages the medicine with tannins and flavonoids, natural buffers that protect the plant and, subsequently, the human who consumes it. The tree is a living laboratory. It uses its roots to pull minerals from the water and its leaves to harvest energy from the sun, synthesizing a complex medicine that is alive. Because it is a whole plant remedy, the body processes it slower, providing a sustained relief that doesn't have the crash or the caustic side effects of the laboratory substitute. But why is this knowledge suppressed? It isn't just about the money, it's about the monopoly of care. If every household knew that a small stand of white willow or black willow in their backyard could replace half the contents of their medicine cabinet, the customer for life model would collapse. A person who can heal themselves is a person who cannot be controlled. If you search for willow bark today, you will find a wall of medical disclaimers. Consult a doctor. Standardization is impossible. Danger of overdose. While safety is vital, these warnings are designed to make you feel incompetent. They want you to believe that you are too unqualified to interact with a tree that your ancestors mastered 4 millennia ago. To reclaim this apothecary, you must look for the high salicin species, Salix alba or Salix nigra. The blueprint for harvest is etched in the seasons. You don't kill the tree, you borrow from it. You harvest the young, flexible branches in the spring when the sap is rising and the bark is easily peeled. This is the inner bark, the living tissue where the alchemy happens. Once dried and ground, This bark becomes a thermal battery for your health. A simple infusion of forgotten tea restores the bridge between your body and the earth's original pharmacy. It is a remedy for the headaches of the modern world, both physical and metaphorical. Think about the implications of a medicine that grows for free, requires no factory, and regenerates every year. It is the ultimate sovereign remedy. But in a culture of high-speed relief, we have been tricked into trading the permanent wisdom of the forest for the temporary convenience of the pharmacy. The willow is more than a tree. It is a symbol of the lost apothecary. It represents a time when we weren't just patients, but partners with the landscape. The suppression of the willow was the first step in the colonization of our health. We are building this archive to ensure that when the pharmacies are empty and the supply chains snap, the knowledge of the great healer is still standing by the river. We are unearthing the techniques for food sovereignty, the blueprints for free power, and the chemistry of the wild. If you are ready to stop being a customer and start being a steward, if you are ready to trade the bottle for the branch, subscribe. Reclaim the apothecary they tried to burn. The archive is open. The healing begins now.